I'm sitting here, kind of the end of the year for me, and getting ready for 2024. And as I look ahead, I think about the year that has gone behind me. And I always take time in this time leading up to Christmas to reflect. And too many people, I think, well, even myself over the years, I haven't taken time to reflect at this time of the year. So sometimes I'll try to start the new year with by setting some goals and trying to get back on my disciplines and kind of check where how well I did in 2023 and then move into 2024. But I forget sometimes to really kind of do an inventory. So I'm going to do an inventory and kind of show you the structure of how I do my inventories and how I think about my year that I just had. I always like to remind people it's important in life to set goals and then to measure, to really do a little bit of a measuring as to what you did to achieve those goals and to move things forward. And I'm 64 years old now, and I have a grandson, and I've had a church for, gosh, going on 30 years, and been helping people around. And so a lot of my life is spent listening and helping people to overcome obstacles, to set next doable steps, to stay positive, to stay motivated, to take on different circumstances and situations and keep going and not quitting and all these things. But it makes it more and more difficult if you kind of don't know where you are and you think you have resources you don't have, and worse is that you do have resources and you're not consciously aware of those. And so those resources might be energy, and you just think you're tired. And sometimes people, when they get tired, they just they think that that's a sign to quit. No, that's just a sign to rest, right? So you got to do a real inventory of looking back over the year. You got to do an inventory of where you are now, and I have some tools for that. So I use the tools of the 5 questions. So I look forward into 2024, and I ask myself, what would I do if I knew I would succeed in 2024? And then I run that question through another tool, which I call the balance scale. And then I ask myself that question spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and financially. So, what would I do if I knew I wouldn't fail? And there's a reason for that order: spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, social, and then financial. And before I can go forward and talk about what would I do if I knew I wouldn't fail, because I did this last year, I look back over this past year and I ask myself, well, how did I do spiritually? And then I ask myself the question of where am I now? Where am I now spiritually? So this past year has been a very powerful year for us spiritually. We've expanded our work in Cuba. And when it means, like, it's not like you kind of think about spiritual as more internal, your relationship with God, your relationship with your quiet time, your own spirit life. For those of you who don't believe in God, listen to me anyway, because I'm going to talk to you about principles that will help you in terms of kind of finding peace, finding that quiet place, kind of taking thoughts captive, so you're not bouncing back and forth. Every time you listen to the news, it causes you to get uneasy, anxious, fearful. So that's really where you want to kind of settle yourself into a life of meditation, a life of prayer, a life of dialogue with God, in my case, to where I actually go into a quiet time on a daily basis where I'm just saying, hey, Lord, straighten me out. Show me the errors of my ways. And that's how I approach the Lord. I mean, guide me, teach me, settle me down. Show me where I'm wrong. Show me where I need to apply more energy. Show me where I am, you know, operating in uneven or incorrect priorities. And so I'm always asking And that's my spiritual life. I also study the work of Jesus, the words of Jesus. I write them, I think about them to develop my spirit life, because I need my spirit to be fed on a daily basis, just like my body needs to be fed, just like my mind needs to be fed. My spirit then needs to be exercised, just like my mind needs to be exercised, just like my body needs to be exercised. My spirit needs to be prioritized and disciplined and thought about, just like my mind needs to be prioritized, disciplined, and thought about. And then my body needs to be disciplined and thought about. Oftentimes we get that a little out of order. That's why I put the spirit up front. So I had a good year. And the way that I measure that is I measure that in the people around me. I measure, did their lives get better? Did my daughter's life get better? Yes. Did my grandson's life get better? Yes. Did my wife's life get better? Yes. Did the life of the members of my church get better? Yes. Did the leaders that God has given me to love and to train and to listen to, did they get better? Did they get better? And the answer to that is yes as well. So it's very, very powerful. It's very, very powerful when you're thinking about these things and you're taking stock. Last year, I also had a couple of events. I had some really wonderful time with high school friends, with college friends, and of course, primarily my time with my wife and my daughter and my grandson was, when I look back, and my son-in-law, was really powerful. Danielle finished her residency this year. She's now an OBGYN doctor. She had a whole 6 to 8 weeks off during the summer, which we got to spend a lot of quality time with her and with Bennett. And during that time, she had to take her final certifications for her medical, so she would have her license as a doctor, even though she graduated from med school 4 years ago, and she's been operating as a doctor, a resident doctor, for the last 4 years. Then she took this exam, she passed it, but we got to spend a lot of time with her. So I take stock and I give thanks for that. I give thanks for being able to be in the swimming pool with my grandson and watching him grow. And now he's walking and now he's saying words. And you just give thanks and you take stock. And I think of that. That's how I think of, my spirit life. If I have growth in my spirit, and if I have growth there, and I think about it, what is that? How does that manifest? How does that communicate itself? Well, am I more loving? Am I more joyful? Am I more peaceful? Do I have more patience with people? Am I gentler? Am I more generous? Am I more faithful? Am I humbler? Is my self-control better? And then I watch, because it's not enough if I think I have it, if I can give it, if I can demonstrate it, if I can be an example. This past year has been really one of my best years that way. So I take stock in that. And because of it, our work even in the prisons, and the leaders that were training in these principles, as you might imagine, those principles, that spiritual principle, would really serve a chaplain in a prison, especially an inmate chaplain, is they have to learn to encourage themselves. They have to know how to take stock. They have to know how to inventory. They have to know how to get to that thankful place, that place where they're doing well. When I look back on 2024, I didn't have a very good year physically. I bounced back and forth in my weight. I lost 40 pounds and I gained 30 back, and now I've lost another 10. And, so physically I'm still struggling, but I take stock of that. And I recognize as I take stock that is a huge obstacle to my next levels of growth. So I write that down and I say to myself, okay, that's huge. And I think it's the biggest one for me. I've been struggling with this for, 20 years. And it's not anything I should struggle with. As a young man, I was a trained athlete. In high school, I was always very skinny. Even in college, when I grew and started to put on a lot of muscle, I still was thin, very thin. And because of it, I could move, And then I started getting into commodities, and the stress level started going up, and I started gaining weight, and then it got out of hand. It just got out of hand. And now I realize that, I can do it. See, that's where, again, we're taking stock, right? I did it before. I was in shape. I could do things. And now I can do it again. It's not a question I can't do it. It's just that I have to get back on those daily habits that I had then, the daily habits of exercise, the daily habits of sleep, the daily habits. So that's my biggest one. And so I'm taking stock and I'm going, and I got to get to a positive place. So I'm thankful. Okay. So even though I'm struggling with my weight, I am healthy, right? I still can. I just rode the Peloton this morning, and I'll be able to get out and walk, between 6 and 7 miles today as I go out and walk the golf course today. At some point, it's only like 40 degrees, but I'll get out there and do that. And so I'm giving thanks. I'm taking inventory. I can still do these things. God has still blessed me with my health. I'm still breathing. You ask the old timers, how you doing? And they'll say something like, oh, I'm still above ground, And so, they're always encouraging themselves in a powerful way. I take stock mentally. Last year was a powerful year mentally. I learned a lot. I work with an intellectual property law firm. I learned a lot about the technologies that they're working on, from artificial intelligence to blockchain to machine learning, all the things that they're doing there. So that challenges me. I didn't accomplish my goals in the area of Spanish, so I'm going to put that back on my list and move that forward. 2023 was also a great year for my relationship with my wife. We're more in love today than we've been, and it's really beautiful and powerful, but it could be better. It could be better. And I'm going to focus a lot on that. And I'm saying this to you because you want to run this inventory spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and you want to do it in this order, right? You want to do it in this order because you'll start to see if you're spiritually balanced and if you're at peace, you're not carrying an extra weight of, I got to do this, or a sense of urgency, or worse, a sense of regret, a sense of condemnation into your physical decisions as you begin to try to get yourself back into shape, whether you're thin and you want to get stronger and more energy, or whether you're heavy and you want to lose weight and get stronger with more energy, etc. And so then you work from there. Once you start feeling better physically, it's easier to study. It's easier to prioritize your learning and your growth and all that stuff. And then you start moving into your emotional side again. If you're spiritually aligned and you're physically healthier and mentally you're learning and growing, you move yourself into a place where you can be more available emotionally. Because if you're in pain physically or mentally or spiritually, you're not going to be that available to your family and your loved ones emotionally. And you're not even going to get to the fact where you can ask yourself on a daily basis, well, how do I feel about that? How do I feel about that? How am I feeling? Am I doing things that out of habit, rote, and obligation, or am I doing things out of joy? Am I doing things that are truly impactful? Or am I just going through the motions? You don't want to live your life like that, but you need to check in from time to time to see. Then the next one is socially. You check and prioritize your relationships. So my first relationship for me is my relationship with God. My second most important relationship is my relationship with my wife, right? And then from there, it's my daughter and son-in-law and grandson. And then it's my church and the leaders that God has sent me to love and to work with, to support. In some cases financially support, in some cases really work with them on a lot of level to encourage them and to grow them. And all of this is in my effort really to hit my goals spiritually, right? My example spiritually is Jesus, right? How can I be more like him? My example physically, it certainly isn't me, and then I look to an ideal where when I was my best self physically, then mentally, at what time in my life was I really cranking and learning and doing things emotionally? When I look to, examples, and then I ask for help. I say to the Lord, help me be a better husband. Help me be more affectionate. Help me to be a better listener. Help me in all those areas emotionally and socially. This past year socially was a tough year for me because I lost my dad. Not that I lost him, he went to heaven. Also, my godfather just passed away, who was a great example to me as a young man, great athlete, good person, fought in Vietnam, and just recently passed away. So socially, I feel a little bit bad. I missed his 50th anniversary. You know, when he had it, they had a big party, but out in Minnesota, and I missed it because I was unaware of it. But you know, you look back and you think about these people, and you love them. But I got to spend time with my dad, so I'm encouraging myself. In September, I went out there for his 84th birthday, and we really had a great couple of days together. My sister Sandy as well, and so reinforcing that really, I'm getting closer to Sandy's husband Tim, who I went to high school with, and that was really beautiful. Reconnecting with college friends, and just trying to think about that. And this morning when I was journaling and kind of taking stock, I thought to myself, I need to really prioritize relationships for next year, starting with you, with God, starting with Annie, and then moving, and then really prioritizing, so that I'm not just reacting to whatever's out there. I want to achieve the goals I want to achieve. So you're noticing that there's a process here. When I'm balanced spiritually, it's easier to balance physically. And when I'm out of pain physically, it's easier to study and grow and learn mentally. And when I'm in shape in those three areas, then I'm more objective. I'm more receptive. I'm more patient. I'm more relaxed. I'm not operating defensively. I've kind of made my peace with things I've been offended about, or things that I regret, or things that I feel guilt about. And then I can be more available and loving and proactive in my endeavors to understand the people that I really care about emotionally. And that gets me set up to then really have healthy interactions socially, right? So all of this is part of taking stock, really. How would I rate myself? Spiritually, I had a good year. On a scale of 1 to 10, taking inventory, I had like a 7 or 7.5. Physically, I probably had like a 3. Okay. Mentally, I probably had like a 3. Emotionally, I probably had like a 6. Socially, last year, even though even though my dad died and my godfather died, I did well in my relationships last year. So maybe a 6 there. And then financially last year, I knocked off a lot of debt. I knocked a lot of debt off last year, and I set myself up for this coming year into setting things up for my family and all that stuff. I mean, so financially, that's the last one that I put on my list. But if everything else is in order, then finances, I've found, begin to flow properly and not as much waste. I don't have bad habits that are costing me money. I don't have, a lot of strife in other areas that's costing me money. And I can be more objective, so I can see opportunities and seize opportunities, which is really, really powerful. So as I look back, I take stock, and I'm just really kind of fair with myself, and I go through those areas and I kind of think about them. Now, I caution you, as you go back through those areas, to do it with the next year in mind, because what you want to do is you want to know where you are now, so then you can work your way towards next year. So you ask yourself now, looking towards 2024, you say, what would I do if I knew I wouldn't fail? All right, well, next year, spiritually, I'm going to really get back on my habits. Physically, I'm going to lose a certain amount of weight. Mentally, I'm going to work on my certifications around my leadership and team building practice, which I have in a company called DJS Advisors. So I'm going to get much, much better at that. I've already got a couple of clients lined up for next year. And so that's very powerful. Emotionally, I'm really going to focus on making my wife the happiest woman on earth. And then socially, I'm going to prioritize, my family back home, as well as some key friendships that I have. And financially, I'm going to knock off a certain level of debt. So I push those things forward, but I've taken stock now, so I kind of know where I am. I've taken an inventory Now, so remember to take that inventory across the balance scale, and then go to the next level of this training, and you simply want to say to yourself, all right, how do I move forward? What's stopping me from moving forward towards the great goal of what would I do if I knew I would succeed? And then you do that again with all 6 of those areas. And then you say, well, what's my next smallest doable step? What could I do today? So this morning I got up on the physical side. I did Peloton, then I did 15 minutes of stretching. I had blueberries for breakfast. I haven't even had coffee. I'm just drinking water, and just little things like that. But then you work that all through the area. What I'm doing right now for me is it's a practice that I call this concept, which I teach people on a regular basis, is that you can't give away what you don't have. And the only way that you can really measure that you have something is if you teach it to somebody else, and then you measure it, you watch it in that person, right? So I'm depending on you, because you are really part of my personal assessment as I look through this, right? I want to personally assess: do I actually have this ability to do an inventory? Do I have this ability to really understand where I am today so that I can move forward into 2024? Because if I don't know where I am, I certainly won't get to where I want to go. So as I teach this to you, you become a very important part of the process. But what I want you to take away from it is, while you learn this, as you're learning this, start thinking about people you can teach this to. See, I have close friends that are actually helping me doing this, with Pierre Laguerre and my friend Anthony Cooper, and they're listening to this and they're taking it to heart because they know these principles work, and they've worked them. So we do that. So we figure out what's our next smallest doable step in all those areas. Now, the key then is step number 4, which is finding that thankful place. So I give thanks for my wife. I give thanks for my health, even my current state of health, which isn't perfect. I give thanks for my relationship with the Lord and the revelation I have there. I give thanks for my church that allows me to serve on a regular basis, of giving and checking to see if I'm actually growing in the areas of love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, generosity, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. Am I truly growing in those areas? Am I moving more towards, pursuing the person of Jesus? Am I doing that on a regular basis? And then so I just give thanks, and find what I'm thankful for. What am I thankful for? And so then the last one is then really, really looking down the road and seeing these goals met, and then celebrating that in my spirit. I celebrate being at peace all the time, being joyful all the time, being really long-suffering and able to not be offended, and just ride and really help people that are going through drama or going through tough circumstances or adversity. Being able to be gentle. I noticed this morning, that I was just having a conversation with my wife, and all of a sudden I said something, and it was more gentle than usual. I was like, whoa, I saw a little fruit there. That was really cool. And once you start doing this, taking stock and doing an inventory, you're going to be more aware. So try to visualize what your life will be like when you reach these goals. So very, very powerful. Well, I want to thank you for tuning in today. I want to thank you for being with us today. And I want to thank you for joining us on Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. So praise the Lord. You're a blessing. And I will speak to you again next week.